Okay, here we've got a bunch of practice problems for the College Algebra Unit 5 test, okay? And, you know, maybe you're sitting in class on Tuesday the 30th and I'm not here and there's a sub, okay? There's going to be places where I'm going to say pause the video, and if you're watching on your own device, then you would want to pause the video and work the problem, and if we're watching this on the big screen, then the sub will want to pause when I say to do that. Okay, so we're going to start by finding the area of the shaded region in terms of x. And really what this is this is a rectangle that we cut squares out of. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of draw the completed rectangle. Right, and so this side that I'm coloring in blue, you want to think, what is the length of this whole side? Well, the length of just this part right here is 13 minus 2x. And then if I add x here and I add x there, I would have 13 minus 2x plus 2x. So this side length is 13. Then you would do the same thing below. And so, anybody have any conjecture as to what this side length is? 10? Yeah, okay. So the area of the whole thing is 130. Except we cut out these 4 squares. And so we think to ourselves, I'm going to get something to color with. What I'm shading in gray, what is the area of these? Anybody see what the area of these gray shaded squares is? Yes, x squared. So I'm going to subtract x squared for the top left, for the top right, for the bottom left, and for the bottom right. Or you could say there were 4 squares and they all had area x squared. And so this is 130 minus 4x squared. This is definitely the type of problem you want to be able to do for the test. Okay, another thing is maybe you've got 2 nested rectangles and you want to find the area enclosed between them. And all of these rectangles have side lengths in terms of x. So what would, if I was going to think of a strategy to find the area, what would y'all do? What would you do?
Find the area of the larger one and the smaller one and then
Subtract them. Okay, so we're going to find the area of the larger one, probably with FOIL. We're going to find the area of the smaller one, also with FOIL, and then we're going to subtract them. And we can do that. So I'm going to start with the outside one, and I guess I'll do that. You know what? Y'all do that. Pause the video, and because in like 10 or 15 seconds, it's going to come up with the full answer. All right, there you go. So what I did was, you see what I underlined in blue, that's the dimensions of the exterior rectangle. I found the area of the exterior rectangle. I found it to be 12x squared, negative 13x, and negative 14. And then I multiplied the dimensions of the interior rectangle to figure out what I was going to subtract away. I got 2x squared, 11x, and 5. So then, to find the area, I subtract. 12 minus 2 is 10. Negative 13 minus 11 more is negative 24. And negative 14 minus 5 more is negative 19. Here we've got another question that I forgot to put on the quiz, but I really liked. And it was the one where they give you 2 of the side lengths and the perimeter, and then they have you find the third side length, which basically uses subtracting polynomials. Okay, so the perimeter of ABC is given by 3x to the third plus 4x squared minus 5. And the sum of AB and BC, so that's this kind of area that or this length that I'm putting blue squiggly lines over, is 4x to the third, negative x squared, and positive 2x. And so we want to know what AC is. So to get AC, what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract the two sides from the total perimeter. So if I take 3x to the third and I subtract 4x to the third, I will get negative 1x to the third. If I take 4x squared and I subtract a negative 1x squared, I'll have 5x squared. Here's where it's, a little more subtle. I have no x's on top, and then I'm subtracting 2x, so I'll have negative 2x. And then negative 5, well, there's no constant term, so it's kind of like plus a 0. And negative 5 minus 0 is going to be negative 5. And that's how we would find the third length of a triangle if we were given the perimeter and the sum of the two other sides. Okay, here we have a couple that are pretty similar to the ones on one of the quizzes this unit, except maybe it's, the one on the left, maybe it's a little more different because I wrote 10 minus x instead of x minus 10. All right, so these I want you to do. So if you're, just watching this video, then you're going to want to pause the video because in about 10 seconds it's going to flash up with the answer. All right, here you go. Okay, here they are. So for perimeter, we're just adding everything up. And on the square, they're all the same, so you could just multiply it by 4 if that's how you felt, because there's 4 sides that were all the same. Or you could say a minus 6 plus a minus 6 plus a minus 6 plus a minus 6. And then for the areas, we're multiplying them out. Okay, we're collecting like terms, and we're getting an expression in terms of x or a. I'll tell you, I really did like this one, though, because of it coming back as just a regular number. That would be definitely the type of item that I would like to put on a test or something. Speaking of items that might appear on tests, all 3 of these were ones that didn't appear on the quizzes that I do really like. So just, be aware of those. In the last of our geometry problems, we have, kind of 3 that are familiar from the quizzes. So I'm going to just kind of walk through all 3 of these, and hopefully, you did these right on the quiz the first time, but if not, I recommend when you're, at home studying for the test or whatever, print out a copy of the quiz, preferably the form that you didn't take, and do it. And make sure that you're doing these problems right, because they are going to show back up. Okay. For the area of the triangle, we know area is 1/2 base times height. And height is 3x squared y to the 4th. All right, well, this is half of, when we take 2xy to the 3rd power, we need to cube everything. That's 8x to the 3rd, y to the 3rd, times 3x squared y to the 4th. Okay, so if I take 8 and 3, that's 24, divided by 2, that's 12. Okay, total powers of x, I have 3 plus 2 is 5, and 7 total powers of y. Okay, over here, finding the volume of the prism. We multiply the length times the width times the height. So what I'm going to do is you just pick any 2 to start with. I'll do y plus 5 times y plus 3. And then I'll end up multiplying that by y plus 2. Okay, so y plus 5 times y plus 3 is going to be y squared, 8y, and 15. I'll multiply that by y plus 2. And remember that when multiplying a trinomial, I generally recommend using the box technique. So what I'm going to do that kind of over here. Y squared, 8y, and 15. times y and 2. This one would probably be not too hard to do without it. Trinomial times trinomial, I definitely recommend the box method. But it doesn't hurt, you know. Y to the third, 2y squared, 8y squared, 16y, 15y, and 30. So the volume, the total volume, is going to be 1y to the third. We kind of look at the y squareds through here. 8 and 2 is 10 y squared. You look at the y's. You got 15 plus 16 is 31 y's. And then plus 30. Then the height of the rectangle. This was one that gave you a lot of problems on the quiz. Okay, and I think it's because we're used to looking at something that needs to be factored and factoring everything that can be factored, rather than factoring what we need. Okay, so it's kind of a subtle difference. But if we've got 3xy as the base of the rectangle, and we know the area of the rectangle, we want to factor a, but we only want to factor out a 3 and an x and a y. Okay, and I see that I forgot to put a kind of a number that was divisible by 3 in front of the x on that one. So that's going to make it a little more difficult. But I'll tell you, it wouldn't be that difficult on the test. And this is actually a good thing to talk about. So I'm going to actually kind of scroll down a little bit. All right, let's clear that out there. All right, so start with area. Area equals negative 6x to the 4y plus x times y to the 4th. And if I'm going to factor out a 3 and an x and a y from that, I'll be left with, okay, negative 2 to get to negative 6. You think, what do I multiply y by to get x by to get x to the 4th? That's going to be x to the 3. And what do I multiply y by to get y? Well, that would be just 1. Then I'm going to add. Okay, well, there's no number on this xy to the 4th. So it's kind of like 1 times x times y to the 4th. So you think, what do I have to multiply 3 by to get 1? And you have to multiply 3 by a third to get 1. And you multiply x by 1 to get x, and y by y to the third to get y to the 4th. Okay, but this certainly needs to be cleaned up. So this is 3xy times negative 2x to the third plus 1/3 y to the third. Meaning that the height would be negative 2x to the third plus 1/3 y to the third. All right, now let's do the quiz 5.4 in groups. So what you're going to do, the sub's going to pass out either Form A or Form B to all of y'all. Everyone should have the same form. Y'all are going to work together. Make sure that, you're factoring these things completely. There are a lot of them with multiple layers. So you want to make sure they're factored completely. In a little bit, I'm going to want you to pause the video, and I'll have the answers will flash up after. And then I'll also have a worksheet for factoring where the leading coefficient isn't 1, and I'll flash the answers to that one as well when the time comes. Okay, so I'm going to say, pause the video because in, 5 to 10 seconds, I'm going to be bringing up the answer key to Form A. Okay, here come the answers to Form A of the group quiz. Okay, here is the front side of Form A. Okay, here comes the second page of Form A. Okay, here's the backside. And if you really want to see me work these problems, just skip farther ahead in the video and I'll be quietly working these problems. Here's Form B.
So whatever, I'm just gonna put the
Okay, and the backside of form B. Right, here you go. And by the way, on number 8 on form B, that first term should be 3w to the third, right? Otherwise, it doesn't make that much sense. Okay, that's got a. Yeah, that's a 2t right here. Got cut off when I printed it. All right, so now I'm going to get a blank copy of the quiz, and I'm going to show you how I would work these. Oh, look, another difference of squares.
Or 2x.
Okay, over here I'm saying that 1 to 5 is the same ratio as -4 to -20, so I'm going to group and factor. Okay, this is a sum of 2 cubes, so this is y to the third plus 3 to the third. And what we're going to do is we're going to say that that's y and 3, y squared 3 times y and 3 squared, and it's the same, opposite, always positive. Okay, over here, this is a difference of 2 cubes. This is 2t to the third power minus v to the third power. So it's going to be 2t and v. 2t squared is 4t squared. V squared is just v squared. If we multiply 2t and v, we'll get 2tv. Same, opposite, always positive. Okay, this is one where we need to multiply the 2 and the -9, so we're looking for two numbers that multiply to -18 while adding to +3. So that's going to be -6 and +3. I'm going to split the middle term. Actually, that's going to be +6 and -3, right? Yeah. Alright, so 2x squared, 6x, minus 3x, and -9. Group and factor. Then factor out a binomial. Factor out a w first. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 24 and add to -14. That will be -12 and -2. Okay, so I'm going to split the middle term like that. Okay, yeah, something bumped into the power button on my tablet. So. Alright, so now I'm splitting the middle term. Factoring by grouping. Don't lose track of that W out front. Okay, looking for two numbers that multiply to 30 and add to 13. That's going to be 10 and 3. So I'm going to split that middle term that way. Remember, it doesn't matter what order you split them in. It's going to work out the same either way. It's not t plus 2. That's going to be 2t plus 1. Okay, see, because if these don't match, you can catch yourself in an error. Okay, over here, I'm not good at factoring things where the leading coefficient is negative, so I'm just going to factor out a negative right off the bat. And then I can look for two numbers that multiply to 2 and add to 1. That's pretty easy. Wait, is it? Multiply to 2. Oh, I didn't reverse the signs. Oh, I'm just making errors all over the place. Minus y minus 1. So they multiply to negative 2 and add to negative 1. Yeah, that's going to be negative 2 and positive 1. All right, there we go. Yeah, that's definitely factorable. Did you find out what happened when the house blew up? What? I agree. All right, here I've got 4 terms, but there's a greatest common factor of x squared. All right, and I see that 1 to 10 is the same as negative 9 to negative 90, so I'm going to group and factor. I'm going to factor out the x plus 10. Oh, and that's a difference of 2 squares. Okay, and over here, same thing. I don't like a negative in front, so I'm going to factor it, and I'll have 6b squared. Ooh, actually, there's a 6 in common element, so I'm factoring out a negative 6. And I'll have b squared plus b minus 2. And then, okay, I know two numbers that multiply to negative 2 and add to positive 1. That'll be positive 2 and negative 1. Yeah. This is from B. All right, here's form B. So we're going to factor the polynomial completely. We're going to factor out the greatest common factor. And we're going to finish it. Because x squared minus 25 is a difference of 2 squares. Okay, over here, this is also a difference of 2 squares. This is a difference of 2 squares. X to the 4th is like x squared squared. 16 is 4 squared. This would be x squared plus 4 and x squared minus 4. Now, x squared minus 4 is also a difference of 2 squares. Notice that x squared plus 4 is a sum of 2 squares. And we don't have anything for sum of 2 squares. Okay, if we had to factor this thing, we'd actually be factoring it over complex numbers. And we'll do that later on in the year. This one looks like group and factor. Yeah, definitely. We factor out the y plus 2, and we're left with a difference of 2 squares, so we got to keep going. Okay, y to the 3rd plus 8 is the sum of 2 cubes. Okay. So remember that if you have a to the 3rd plus b to the 3rd, you set it up with a and b. And there's a trinomial. It's like a squared, b squared, and ab. And then the signs, it's the same. It's the opposite and always positive. So, okay, so this is y to the 3rd plus 2 to the 3rd. So this is y and 2 multiplied by y squared, 2y and 2 squared, same, opposite, always positive. This looks like a difference of 2 cubes. Okay, if I made it difference of 2 cubes, well, the only thing that would change is that this would be the same, this would be the opposite, and this is still always positive. So this 3t taken to the third power minus v to the third. So I'll have 3t and v. If you square 3t, you'll get 9t squared. Square v, you get v squared. And then you multiply and you get 3tv. And same, opposite, always positive. Okay. I already did this one. I did this one for somebody in my third period. And so, you factor out the greatest common factor, you split the middle term, you group in factor, and you get your answer. For here, we're going to factor out a greatest common factor. So x times 2x squared minus 3x minus 9. Okay, 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. So it multiplies to negative 18 and adds to negative 3. Well, that'll be, this one seems just like the other one. It must be off by just a negative sign or something. This will be negative 6 and positive 3. So x times 2x squared minus 6x plus 3x minus 9. Now I'm going to group in factor. Factor out the x minus 3. I'm left with 2x and a positive 3. Over here, looking for two numbers that multiply to 40 and add to 14. That's going to be 4 and 10. Or 10 and 4, however you like it. Really doesn't matter. So it's 8t squared plus 10t plus 4t plus 5. Okay, so I'm going to factor out a 2t. I'm left with 4t plus 5. Okay, so that means I'm going to have to factor out a 1 over here. That's going to be 4t plus 5. And so factor out the 4t plus 5, and I'm left with 2t plus 1. Over here, okay, just like on the last one, I don't like the negatives, so I'm going to factor out the negative. 3y squared plus 2y minus 1. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 3 while adding to positive 2. That's going to be positive 3 and negative 1. So I've got the negative of 3y squared plus 3y minus y minus 1. And so that's 3y times y plus 1, and a negative 1 times y plus 1. I factor out the y plus 1, and I'm left with 3y minus 1. Okay, here I've got two more. X to the fifth and 10x to the... Okay, so I've got a greatest common factor of x squared. And then I'm going to have x squared times x plus 10 and negative 4 times x plus 10. Okay. I'm going to factor out the x plus 10. I'm left with an x squared and a negative 4. That's a difference of 2 squares, so I can keep going. And then over here, okay, again, I don't like the negative leading coefficient, so I'm going to say that this is negative. So I'm going to factor out the 6 also. Negative 6 times b squared minus b minus 2. Okay, so that's going to be negative 6 times b minus 2 times b plus 1. Okay. And that's quiz 5.4. I will have something else for you. I've got another worksheet for you. And here. All right, and here we have one of those worksheets with the corny joke at the bottom. And I know y'all love those, or maybe you actually hate them. But either way, it's got 17 of these factoring where the leading coefficient is at 1. And if this is something you struggle with, I say you should do all of them. I'm not going to tell you what actually happened when the boarding house blew up because I haven't done this worksheet. But if you are looking for it, you can find this on the college algebra course calendar. And I'll probably also put a link to this worksheet in the description of the video. Okay, but that's going to be all. If you need anything before the test, you can email me or go see Mr. Messner or come see me in the morning or something like that. But I think y'all are all going to do well because the scores on the quizzes have been good this year. So happy studying.